All right, so here we have a profile screen that is trying to load its profile from the server, well, first of all, the server doesn't have this post request mapped on the server. So let's head over to the server and actually implement that endpoint. So let's go to the server side, and here in the controller, the user controller, and notice that we only have a register. But we don't have the profile. So let's implement that here. We'll say this is a post mapping, and it's going to be mapped to profile. And we want to retrieve a user, right? So this is profile. And we're not passing any information. So what should we return? What should we return? And notice that I don't have enough information from the client to be able to retrieve anything, not even from the database. I know there's Joe and there's Bob. Which one? Who should I retrieve? So we need some mechanism that the server can distinguish and realize that that we are in a conversation, right? That I just spoke to you, right? And you just registered, and I need a mechanism so that I can remember that we're still in the same conversation. Right now, there is no mechanism for doing that. So to be able to support this conversation, we're going to introduce a new technology, a new technique, and it's called the HTTP session. All right. So HTTP session is it's an API that allows to use underlying cookies, right, to distinguish that this is the same person talking to us, right? So to do that. To use that, you can request an HTTP session in any of your mapped functions, right? So we can say here, send me a session instance, right? And what this object is going to do is that it's going to use your cookie, right? And based on that cookie, it's going to instantiate this session, right? If it's the same cookie, then it'll use the same object that it had created earlier. If it's a brand new cookie, it'll recreate a brand new session. That means that in the register, if I had previously sent a cookie over, right, it'll use the same session as before. Or if it's my very first time communicating with the server will create a brand new cookie so that next time around you try to communicate with me, I will use the same session. So what I can do now is I can use this session, right, to store information in there, right? For instance, what I might do is that I might store in the session, I can save in the session, I can save the profile. And in there, I can put the new user. So I can store something in the session. Later on, right, if you try to communicate in a separate request, later on, maybe a couple minutes later or milliseconds later, I can use the same session, right, to retrieve whatever I had stored in there, right? So for instance, in the profile, I can use the HTTP session, right? Again, if it's the same cookie, the instance for this session will be the same instance that I used in an earlier request, right? So I can now use the session, and I know I had stored something. I know I had stored something in the profile, right? And the data type for that what I had stored in there, I know it was a user that I had put in there, right? And I can now recreate the profile from the session. Okay, I need to use the same string, right? Because the session is used just like a hash table, right? I can put anything in there and keyed off of whatever string I choose. As long as I use the same string, I know that I can store and retrieve the same information that I had put in there, and so here again, if I'm using the same cookie, this instance session will be the same instance here. Now, if someone else logging in from a different browser, right, they'll be using a different cookie. That means that they will have a completely different session. It'll be a different profile. And each one of us will have their own profile. I'll have my own profile. You'll have your own profile. If there's 100 people logging in, they'll have 100 different cookies with 100 different instances for the session objects 100 different profiles, right? And each one will have their own conversation with the server, and the server will know, which, to send which profile to who, again, based on that cookie, right? So once I have the profile, I can send back the profile. I can say return their profile information over to the client. So let's try this out now on the client side.